Gas gun accuracy this week on Mail Call Mondays. Mail Call Mondays is brought to you by Modular Driven Technologies. If you need a chassis system for your precision rifle, check out mdttac.com. I'm John McQuay with 8541 Tactical, and this is Mail Call Mondays, the show that answers your questions about precision rifles, optics, and equipment. Welcome to another Mail Call Mondays, and this Monday our first question comes from Facebook, and it comes from Justin. And Justin asks, what is an acceptable level of accuracy to expect from a gas gun in your opinion for PRS use? And do you have a preferred barrel manufacturer? Thanks. Well, Justin, the whole issue with gas guns and PRS, outside of specifically a gas gun division or gas gun series, is a question that comes up from time to time. What I've got sitting in front of me here is our Mega Arms Ma-10 build, chambered in 6.5 Creedmoor, and this is the gun that I generally grab if I am going to go shoot a gas gun at a competition. And it is not without some problems. Accuracy aside, let's talk a little bit about why you would and why you wouldn't want to take a gas gun to a PRS type match to begin with. First of all, gas guns do make it easier to get a rapid string of fire downrange without breaking your position. Say, for instance, you have to address a barricade, get a rifle in position on the barricade, then you do not have to move your body position in order to operate the action. You pull the trigger, the rifle cycles itself, loads a fresh cartridge in, and you're ready to go. Just trigger reset, and you can pull the trigger again. This makes rapid target engagement very, very easy. So if you're in a situation where you have a single target and you have to put multiple rounds on that single target, the gas gun will give you a lot more time to settle in, to get squared away before you start sending rounds down range, because your split times will be so much shorter. And you won't have the movement, you won't have the loss of stability by breaking your hand off the pistol grip and maneuvering the bolt. That does come with a cost, though, and the cost is generally the reliability of the semi-automatic rifle. Now, if you go with a less expensive rifle, or if you are not a very experienced gun builder, then you are not going to have a 100% reliable rifle. Even if you start out with a 100% reliable rifle, when you try to push the edge of the envelope on the cartridge that you're shooting through it, so you try to push the edge of pressure levels and velocity, then you're going to impact reliability as well. And that reliability can cost you a lot of points, and it can cost you a lot of time. So when you get into a position and you start shooting and you have a double feed, that's going to be a problem. You have a failure to extract, that's going to be a problem. Or what I run into most with this rifle while we were working through it and getting the bugs knocked out of it was popped primers. You will get into a situation with these where the pressure level in that cartridge is enough to push the primer out of the back of it before it's extracted, and that primer ends up inside your action. Generally what will happen is when you kick the case out, the primer will fall out of the back of it, and if you are lucky, then it will go out the ejection port with the case. If you're not lucky, it will remain in the action, and if you are really, really unlucky, it will find its way forward into the locking recess and prevent the bolt from locking up and possibly seize the entire gun up. I have had that happen as well. If you have a primer drop into your cam pin recess, it can lock the bolt up to where you actually have to pound the bolt carrier group out of the rifle, and it will end up doing a little bit of damage to the upper receiver. It's really not good for the longevity of your parts. So when you start pushing the extreme limits with the rifle, gas guns will cry foul before a bolt gun will. Now, bolt guns are not immune to that. When you cycle the bolt, you can still lose primers. They can still get into the lug recesses and lock things up. So anytime you push the ragged edge of pressure with your cartridges, no matter if it's a bolt gun or a gas gun, you can run into issues. Now, where I like to select a gas gun for shooting is if I know it is a type of match that has a lot of movement, tight time frames, and rapid target engagement. then I like the gas gun, because generally PRS rules are that, or not PRS rules. PRS rules are what they are. You can look those up. But generally, precision rifle matches that allow gas guns, the rules are that when you move, you simply have to put the rifle on safe. So you're moving with the round in the chamber, rifle on safe, finger straighten off the trigger. You get into the next position, it's just click that selector down and fire. This is a lot quicker. And again, if you need to provide a follow-up shot, it is a lot quicker with the gas gun. And then finally, I will usually run a brass catcher. This one is from Tactical Brass Recovery, and it is a really, really nice setup that clips onto the rail on the side of the rifle here and does pivot out of the way, so I can clear the rifle if I need to, pivot it back, and I can retain all of the brass that I use, which is important, since in order to combat those pressure issues, this rifle, I run Lapua small rifle primer brass in it. And that brass is fairly expensive, so I want to retain as much of it as I possibly can. Now, when we switch over to accuracy, there are very accurate semi-automatic precision rifles out there that rival bolt guns. Now, if you're benching the gun and you're shooting it in a very, very stable position, then bolt guns still tend to have the advantage. Bolt guns are more consistent than semi-automatic rifles. They're not relying on spring pressure to seat the bolt the same way every time. They're extra things attached to the barrel. We have gas blocks. In the case of a direct impingement rifle like this, we have gas blocks, we have gas tubes, we have a handguard here that is surrounding the barrel. We have a barrel nut that is holding that barrel back in. There are a lot of little extra details on the gas gun that you don't have on the bolt gun that can contribute or detract from the accuracy of the firearm. Now, if you have a semi-automatic rifle that will group 5 shots at 100 yards under 1 inch, then that is going to be sufficient to go compete at a precision rifle competition and not really do poorly. Your skill and your ability to get the gun into position, your ability to call wind, and your ability to adjust the dope for the different targets is going to be more important than the intrinsic accuracy of the rifle. Now, this one varies from 3/4 to half MOA. It just really depends upon the load. If I take a lot of time and work up a hand load for it, then we stay on that closer end, but then I have to be tight on the gun as well. Semi-automatic rifles prefer a harder hold, at least that's been my experience. So you really need to drive the gun harder with a semi-automatic rifle versus with a bolt-action rifle. And if you get off of that a little bit, you're just off of your game, then it seems with the semi-automatic rifle that things go sideways very quickly. So again, that is a drawback to running a semi-automatic gun in a PRS style match versus the bolt gun. And finally, semi-automatic rifles tend to be heavier when you are talking about a precision match rifle. This one is a little bit heavier than what my Ultimatum Deadline is. They're about the same barrel profile, but we've got a PRS stock on here, which is fairly heavy, and the US Optics scope on here is not a lightweight scope either. Now, that's not to say that you can't build it up fairly lightly, and to answer the second part of your question, for barrels, if I was to rebuild this rifle today, I would put a proof carbon fiber wrapped barrel on it to alleviate some of that weight. The proof barrels have been very accurate for us. The one that I run on Accuracy International AE Mark II is very accurate. I ran that same barrel on an AI AT for the Oregon Sniper Challenge years ago, and it did fantastically there. So I would probably do a proof carbon fiber wrap barrel on this gun if I was going to do it again. Of course, the drawback is even in 6.5 Creedmoor, that barrel is going to have a limited life to it. It will have a shorter life in a semi-automatic rifle if you're shooting it at a high volume of fire. So that is a lot of money going into the barrel. In fact, if you look out there at some of the cheaper large frame ARs, you can buy a whole AR for what the cost of a proof carbon fiber barrel is. But generally there you're getting cheaper barrels as well. Now, we do have on deck a Savage MSR-10, which is their MSR-10 long range in 6.5 Creedmoor, and that rifle is not quite as accurate as this one, but it is still right in that range where you could compete with it and not do poorly. You are not going to make the absolute top, because if they have very, very small targets, or if they have a paper stage, for instance, B&T AccuShot Challenge, something like that, the semi-automatic rifle is probably not going to do very well on that, especially the MSR-10. The MSR-10 is about a slightly less than 1 MOA rifle with factory ammunition, so that's not a good deal for that. This rifle with the Criterion barrel that we have on here is much more accurate than the MSR-10. So accuracy is not the whole story. Rifles like the JP Enterprises rifles, the Seekins Precision, those rifles out there, even some of the top-level rifles from Armalite and some of the other custom builders will be accurate enough for PRS competition. It is the reliability, it is the ammo selection and the ammo loading for the rifle, and then it is your ability to drive the gun that is really going to have a greater impact than just the intrinsic the intrinsic accuracy of the rifle. So it's not a super cut and dried answer. If you take the rifle out and you shoot it and it will shoot 3/4 inch groups at 100 yards, then I'd say you're going to be doing pretty good. You're going to be running with a lot of the bolt guns in the field. If you can go out and you can shoot a 1/2 inch 5-shot group at 100 yards with the rifle and do that consistently, then it's going to be excellent. It's not going to be an issue with the rifle. It's going to be an issue with how well you can run it. So that is my opinion on the accuracy necessary on a semi-automatic rifle to be able to compete in PRS. Now, you don't see a lot of them in the field because there's really no reason in PRS competitions to go with the semi-automatic rifle other than personal preference. You really don't have a competitive advantage to it. Bolt-action rifles like at the Accuracy Internationals, the Ultimatum Deadline, some of the Defiance actions out there, they're so smooth and so fast that if you practice the bolt manipulation, really you are not giving up anything on the clock to the semi-automatic guns. But it's more difficult to run things like a brass catcher on a bolt gun, so if that's important to you, a semi-automatic rifle is a better option. If you intend to shoot DMR style matches in addition to PRS style matches, designated marksman matches like the ones that they hold down at Woody's usually have a tighter time frame, and they are set up to where you may have to put multiple shots on each target. If you're in that situation, then being able to drive the gun, press the trigger, reset, press the trigger again to get multiple hits on a single target before you transition definitely favors the gas gun. And when you start shooting on things like boat simulators or suspended platforms, then I feel the gas gun gives you a little bit of an advantage, because if you have a very efficient brake on the rifle, then there's no extra movement to disturb your platform. You're just pressing, you're waiting for the recoil, for that energy to abate, and then you can fire your shot again. So overall, that is my rambling opinion on the semi-automatic rifle. I enjoy shooting semi-automatic rifles, but here lately, because we've been fiddling around with this guy and trying to get it dialed in, it seems like every time I go out and shoot it, I will have a small issue that I need to overcome. If I go grab a reliable bolt gun like an Accuracy International, those issues aren't there. All I have to do is concentrate on my performance. So sometimes you grab the bolt gun just because you don't want to deal with the issues of the gas gun. But gas guns are fun. Being able to shoot quickly is fun. Being able to just rattle a target as quickly as you can cycle the trigger is amazingly fun. And one other huge advantage of the semi-automatic rifles is it's pretty common to run a 20-round PMag in this type of rifle, so you're not limited to how many rounds you can put in the magazine, obviously up to 20, but very rarely will you find a stage that requires all 20 rounds. So you can stack this thing up, and if you have an issue, you have a miss that you can make up because of the stage rules or something of that nature, or you have something where it requires a reload. Reloads are faster with the semi-automatic gun. I can very easily jam a mag in, hit that bolt release, and be back on the trigger really quick with this rifle versus with a bolt gun that really wasn't designed to be reloaded fast. So I hope that answers your question. That's just my opinion, but as always, I want to hear what you guys have to say, so please drop a comment in the comment section down below or send it to us on Facebook or Twitter. If you like the video, please make sure you like, share, and subscribe. Make sure you hit that little bell icon down below so you get notified when we release new content. And until next time, get out and shoot.